We gathered here on the Facebook Live to discuss the situation of young people all over the globe regarding the COVID-19 and what effects it brought to our generation.
The closure of schools and the universities has meant the interruption of access to education for thousands of children and young people here in the region. I think it's the same in the other regions. Everything has changed since the quarantine process because it has been like mandatory for us to stay at home. And how we live, how the young people relate to each other, and how they learn since they have to be at home, it changed everything. It must be recognized that through the region here, the communities and the teachers have tried a lot to support the educational process of young people and the children, but very little has been done by governments. So the access of technology is low in the region still for the poor people.
For us in Africa, a lot of learning happens in person, and we have limited access to internet in various communities. And so when you take learning online, you are having a chunk of the population or of young people undergoing education being left out. And so we are realizing that, yes, there are certain policies that could help mitigate the challenges of the pandemic, but the very position of Africa in terms of its preparedness in handling such pandemics has made us, or has put us in a precarious situation in terms of youth development and also education.
In Europe, the COVID, I think, that has put at stake the prospects of hundreds and thousands of young people in Europe, and more particularly in those countries that have been hit the most, such as Italy in first place, then Spain, that we have been hit a lot, and also France. While young people is often defined as one of the best periods in one's life, since it's the moment when personal and professional development takes place, nothing could be further from the truth for millions of young workers who are facing their second global economic crisis in only 12 years. I mean, in 2008, 2013 crisis revealed that the additional vulnerability of young people to economic recession in comparison to other age groups. And there are evidences that the first months of this pandemic, which have shown that while young people are in general resilient than all the other people to the disease, they are more vulnerable to the social and economic impact. And this is just the beginning. So we will see in the next months what's going on.
During this time of confinement, many young people, migrants, who don't have job guarantees in their destination countries, have decided to return to their countries. And this is almost no country has seen as an alarm here in the region, in Latin America. So something that the states should attend, it's quite the contrary. They didn't attend at all, and the return experiences has been really difficult for young people that needs to return to their countries. Here in my country, 90% of the people who return from outside are young people that were working outside in the region, Argentina, Brazil, and the countries that are close to my country. But this is a situation that it is happening in all the region. Also, it happens a lot with the Mexicans and the USA, and we must, and people from other countries that lives in USA, and this has been really difficult also, because migration is a hard reality on our region.
You'd think that in a global pandemic, authoritarian governments would at least, take shape in order to avoid some backlash, but they've actually used the pandemic to immobilize people and push authoritarian policies some more. So in the Philippines, they've passed the terror law, which is very dangerous because of its because of its vague provisions, even just sharing, for example, a red star or a socialist rose, if the government thinks that that's a terrorist symbol, then you can get imprisoned for that. Even if without charges, you can get imprisoned for 24 days. If they think that your organization is a terrorist group, even if it's just a political opposition group, then you can get life imprisonment. And that's the law that was passed and has taken effect right now over other most important policies. That's happening in India too with the National Security Act. Um, and shockingly, the Modi government of India is also blaming the virus to the Muslim population, and so there's a wave of Islamophobia in India as well, where the media is taking part with vilifying the Muslim population as the spreaders of COVID-19.
In most of the countries of Latin America, we have really dark times in our history when the military and the police took the control of the streets once again. And all the rights to assembly, to have reunions, meetings, and demonstrations were violated from day one. Therefore, if there is no way to face this imposition of institutions, I must say that the consequence will be the loss of political and democratic rights. And this is really, really alarming.
Violence against women and children are on the rise too here in the Asia and Pacific. And while official government data would show that it's much lesser than ordinary days, the argument there is that women and children are finding it hard to report to police and to human rights groups with the lockdown.
For example, in Paraguay, reports of violence between the same family environment doubled since the first months of the quarantine. So we reached in the first month 80 reports per day of intrafamily violence. And this has been really hard for women. And the government has been denied this situation.
What could be the perspective? Not that for the good conscience, my generation listens from time to young people, but really how could we change the policy perspective into be more anticipative towards the future? Why I'm saying this? Sorry for coming back on the European example, but what was decided 2 days ago makes me a little bit afraid, because in the end, the refinancing of this recovery plan shall be ended in 2058. 38 years from now. Well, for me, it's very clear I will not be there anymore. This is by nature, it's impossible, but let's say you will be there in 38 years. Yeah. But what does it mean to take policy decisions today that have such a huge impact? 38 years is enormous. And in particular, as we are in the first phase of Corona, we discuss in many regions of the world whether there would be a second wave and whether there's really containment and so on. So there's a lot of question marks on this. So perhaps let me start by saying, should we discuss also the way, how can we improve not only that your generation is from time to time listened to, but really what can be done to have to be more in the driving seat and to have more to say than just making comments and saying, but don't forget the young, don't forget the women, don't forget, you know how it is, always this kind of elderly people's discussion. So perhaps your reactions on the ideas on this.
Lawmakers need to listen to what is happening on the ground, and that participation of young people needs to go beyond just the tokenistic seat in the table, but actually get to make decisions. And the experiences that are happening on the ground needs to be realized in a policy level as well, in order for the effects and the consequences of it to be universal and not just stuck in different or specific localities. But when it becomes policy, it becomes of course shared resources can be poured towards it, and it can be replicated in different areas. For example, here in the Philippines, who are part of the labor force, who are workers, and a lot of them maybe could be in informal sectors or are part of the gig economy. And so there's a lot of space to do bold solutions in order to get rid of the usual capitalistic model where they only get a few percentage of the profit that they make because they'd have to give it to the platforms. But then looking at different countries such as in France or in Spain with co-op cycle, for example, where young people, different groups have used this time where a lot of young people are taking um, deliveries online. They've dreamt up a new system where they've built basically a cooperative, a new economic system where workers get their fair share of the profit in the middle of this pandemic. And so I think those are one of the important things in terms of policy making, that lawmakers need to listen to what is happening on the ground, and that participation of young people needs to go beyond just the tokenistic seat in the table, but actually get to make decisions.
We need strong platforms to make our voice loud. We need a strong presence in all regions. And above all, we need to develop tools that connect us with grassroots organizations, reinforce internal democracy of our organizations, and we need international organizations that truly are close to the people, not distance from the people. We need to have less vertical organizations. We need to develop new forms of organize ourselves, because I think we need to refresh the way that we organize us, from the parties, from the youth political organizations, and also from our left organizations in the international level, because the young people, and not us young, but the youngers, of course, they need different ways of organizing, and we are seeing this in the world, here in Latin America, in Chile, in Argentina, in Brazil. We are seeing that in Central America with the big demonstrations that they have in Dominican Republic before and after the local elections and before the presidential elections. We, of course, are seeing this with our comrades in USA with Black Lives Matters. And I mean, next generations are demanding from us new ways of organizing.
We have one globe, we have one earth, yeah, and our idea is that we do not mobilize only voters, which is important, but in particular, we speak on citizens, and we have many, many active citizens in particular who have shown also commitment now in time of Corona. And I think this is the positive side. And this commitment, we need to catch it and keep it high, this momentum. So it's a pleasure to listening to you, and I'm really keen to continue. Let's see, take further initiatives on this, and let's continue to work together between Progressive Alliance, yes, and IUSY, and also with others. So thank you very much.
We are not ending discussion here. We are opening the floor, and I really hope that in the future we will continue the series, and we will organize other interesting discussions between these organizations. So once again, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening to us and following. I've seen we had quite a lot of followers and listeners. So thanks again, until the next time.